Look at these two worlds. One, filled with wealth, power, and opportunity. The other, struggling to survive. Now here's the question no one asks. Why does this gap never close? Because if poverty was just bad luck, some countries would have escaped it by now.
But they haven't. And that's where things get uncomfortable. What if poor countries aren't failing? What if they were never meant to win?
The big lie. You were told a simple story. Poor countries are poor because of corruption, laziness, lack of education. Sounds logical. In Nigeria, thousands of graduates leave university every year, but many struggle to find jobs. Not due to lack of intelligence, but lack of opportunity. In countries like Bangladesh, garment workers often work over 10-12 hours a day, not because they don't work hard, but because the system around them limits how much they can earn. But it falls apart quickly, because some of the hardest working people on earth live in the poorest places. So the question becomes, what are we missing?
Hi listeners! Where are you watching from? Leave it on the comment section.
The system was designed. To understand the present, you have to go back. Colonial powers didn't just take land. They redesigned economies. Entire regions were forced into one role: produce raw materials. Nothing more. No industries, no independence, just extraction. And when colonization ended, the structure stayed. The structure stayed. Different rulers, same system. The resource curse. Here's the paradox. The more resources a country has, the poorer it can become. Oil, gold, diamonds. Instead of creating wealth, they attract control. During colonial rule, countries like India were forced to export raw cotton to United Kingdom, only to buy back finished clothes at higher prices. Example 2, artificial borders. In Democratic Republic of the Congo, borders were drawn without regard for ethnic or economic balance, creating long-term instability that still affects development today. Oil wealth problem. Venezuela has one of the largest oil reserves in the world. Yet millions face economic hardship due to mismanagement and overdependence on oils and conflict. In Democratic Republic of the Congo, vast mineral wealth, including cobalt interests and conflict instead of prosperity. The debt trap. When countries struggle, they borrow. And borrowing seems like a solution, until it isn't. Because loans come with conditions. Cut spending, raise taxes, sell national assets. In the 1980s and 90s, countries like Ghana took loans that required cutting public spending, leading to reduced healthcare and education access. Argentina has repeatedly borrowed from global institutions, only to face recurring economic crises and inflation. Corporate extraction. Big corporations arrive with promises: jobs, growth, development. But here's what often happens instead: the cheap labor, minimal regulation, massive profits. And those profits, they don't stay, they leave. In Vietnam, factories produce goods for global brands. Yet workers earn only a fraction of the final product's value. Example 2. Resource profits leaving. In parts of Nigeria, oil is extracted by multinational companies, but much of the profit flows abroad instead of staying local. Brain drain. The brightest minds don't stay. They leave. Doctors, engineers, innovators. Not because they want to, but because they have no choice. And when talent leaves, progress slows. Example 1. Medical migration. Thousands of doctors trained in Nigeria relocate to countries like United Kingdom, seeking better pay and working conditions. In India, many top engineers move to United States, contributing to innovation abroad instead of at home. The invisible control. Here's the part no one talks about. Control doesn't always look like control. Sometimes it looks like influence. Narratives shape perception. Perception shapes reality. And reality becomes a cycle. Countries like Somalia are often portrayed only through conflict and poverty, ignoring progress and discouraging investment. Example 2, investor bias. When investors view Haiti as unstable, they hesitate to invest, reinforcing economic challenges.
South Korea transformed from a poor country in the 1960s into one of the world's leading economies through education and industry.
Singapore invested heavily in infrastructure and governance, becoming a global financial hub despite limited natural resources.
The truth. Some nations struggle not because they lack potential, but because they operate within systems shaped long before them.
Others succeed because they found ways to adapt, restructure, and break parts of that system. The truth. So why do some countries stay poor? Not because they can't grow, but because the system around them makes growth difficult. History, economics, power, all connected. But here's the truth most people ignore. Systems can be understood. And once understood, they can be challenged.